sisters, I want to mention a couple more very powerful things that we can use in order to indicate and to show to people how can we know the Qur'an is revelation from Allah. One of the things that may not be that remarkable to you, but from my experience, when one explains this to someone who is not a Muslim, they find it very, very powerful. And that is the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved the Qur'an. Of course, the Qur'an has been with us now for over 1,400 years. And what is truly amazing is that we have ancient manuscripts of the Qur'an dated very close to the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if we compare the Qur'ans that we have today with those Qur'ans, with those ancient manuscripts, we will find that the Qur'an has not changed at all. Not only that, of course, we have the fact that the Qur'an has been memorized by countless numbers of people throughout the ages. And if we were to bring, and in fact it does happen still in Ramadan and different times, if we were to bring those people together and they were to recite the Qur'an, we will find that they would be in agreement. So these are two different ways in which the Qur'an has been preserved. It's been preserved both in the written form, and we have through almost every single age and every generation numerous textual manuscripts of the Qur'an, which we can compare them, as well as the fact that we have throughout the earth people who have memorized the entire Qur'an. And of course, what we find is that the text and the memorization and those people who have memorized it have all agreed. So this is very important. So a person who is studying the Qur'an and reading the Qur'an can feel very, very sure that what they are reading is in fact the very same thing that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad 1,400 years ago. And of course, this is something that the Qur'an has mentioned. The Qur'an has mentioned that the one who has revealed the Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has promised to preserve the Qur'an. The other remarkable quality about the Qur'an may not be that obvious to somebody who's not an Arab, but it does have an important historical significance, and we can evidence it from the point of view of history. And of course, there are still today many people who speak Arabic. So this is the challenge of the Qur'an, that if this book, if this Qur'an was from anyone else than God, then the challenge is there to produce one chapter like it. And of course, the smallest chapter of the Qur'an is only 3 lines, 3 ayat. Inna a'ataynaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shaniyaka huwa al-abtar. So this challenge was given 1,400 years ago to produce just one chapter like the smallest chapter of the Qur'an. And of course, the remarkable thing is that the Arabs who are living in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, were the most eloquent and the most gifted and the most capable in their usage of the Arabic language. They were extremely proud of their prowess and their ability to use the Arabic language and to make beautiful poems. Yet despite all of this mastery they had of their language, this man came, Muhammad, who they knew, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who they knew he was not a poet, he was not some master of poetry, yet he came with something that left the poets speechless, and that it laid down the challenge that if you believe that this book is from other than God, then come together. Bring all your poets together, do whatever it is that you think is going to bring you inspiration, and just bring one chapter like this Qur'an. And as we know, they were totally unable to do that in any way, shape or form. Now, some people misunderstand the reality of what this challenge is. And they think that, okay, well, you know, every age has amazing literature. In England, we have Shakespeare. You have Homer's Iliad. In India, you have Bhagavad Gita or whatever. So people point out that in different cultures, there are amazing works of literature. It doesn't mean that it's from God. And this is not really understanding the reality of the challenge of the Qur'an. Because the reality is that the Qur'an was a unique form of speech in the Arabic language. It was unlike anything else. It wasn't normal speech. It wasn't rhymed prose. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't like the speech of the soothsayer. The Qur'an is its own unique form of speech in the Arabic language. So the challenge is not only to produce something beautiful, but it is also there for people to produce something unique, a new unique form of the Arabic language, a new unique way of saying things that is also beautiful and that is also impactful and that also has the depth of knowledge and insight. So the challenge of the Qur'an is, of course, on many, many levels. And the reality is that, as we said, the Arabic language is still here today. It could even be argued that after the Qur'an, a person's ability to understand and study and imbibe within themselves the Arabic language was even more possible afterwards than before. Yet until today, no one has been able to meet this challenge of the Qur'an. Another amazing thing about the Qur'an, and this goes back to what I was mentioning before, is the ability of people to memorize it. So here's not only the fact that the Qur'an has been memorized and preserved, but also the fact that it is easy to memorize. This is also something that I've found many people who are not Muslim have found it truly amazing when they discover that children as young as 4 or 5 or 6 years old have been able to memorize the entire Qur'an. And often these children themselves do not even speak Arabic. So the fact that the Qur'an is so easy to memorize, this is also one of its miraculous qualities. Of course, another dimension of the Qur'an is the information in the Qur'an concerning the oneness of Allah, the stories of the prophets, the history of past nations, the descriptions in the Qur'an of the world around us, and how interesting and amazing it is that these descriptions of the world and the universe seem to be in agreement with a lot of what we understand today about the universe. So this is something very, very remarkable about the Qur'an. And really anybody who thinks about it deeply and contemplates on it and looks into it will really have a very, very strong indication and a strong understanding that this book really is the revelation and the guidance from the creator of the heavens and the earth. And of course, very importantly, it does actually tell us what is the purpose of our existence, why God has created us, what is the purpose of our life. That answer to that big question is actually there in the Qur'an. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ.